What if I told you that in just 3 nights everything could change, not by chance, not by luck, but by divine intervention? Imagine angels being celestial, supernatural messengers, bringing answers, opening doors, delivering what no human could ever arrange. And it doesn't take a lifetime of religion. It takes 3 intentional nights of something most people overlook. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear is not theory. It's a divine secret that Kathryn Kuhlman knew, and it still works today. Let me tell you something that will shift the way you see the next 3 nights, not because of a ritual, not because of routine, but because of relationship. If you truly knew what happens when you pray with faith, not casually, not distractedly, but with heart and hunger, you would never take another night lightly again. This is not about begging heaven. This is about aligning yourself with what has already been prepared for you. For 3 nights, if you can press in, not with your mouth alone, but with your spirit, you'll begin to feel the atmosphere shift around you. You will feel something stirring that cannot be explained in human terms. That is not emotion. That is not energy. That is the supernatural being stirred up in your environment. Kathryn Kuhlman understood this. She wasn't seeking popularity. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. Her secret, she knew how to enter the presence, not once, not twice, but night after night, until it became her breath, her heartbeat, her entire existence. And that's what these 3 nights must be for you. Not just another attempt at breakthrough, but a complete surrender into intimacy. Real prayer isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the whisper in your soul that says, "I know you hear me." It's the deep cry that rises not from your throat, but from your very spirit. And when that happens, when your spirit reaches out with expectation, heaven leans in to respond. Now hear me. You don't need a perfect place. You don't need a stage or a spotlight. You don't even need to know all the words. You just need to be real. That's all it takes. A quiet room, a sincere heart, and a willingness to believe that even in your silence, your groaning, your waiting, something is happening in the unseen. These 3 nights are not about how long you pray. They're about how deep you're willing to go. You could spend 10 minutes in raw, focused surrender and shift more in the spirit than someone praying for hours without faith. Here's what happens when you show up night after night. Something breaks, not outside, but inside you. The layers of doubt, fear, pride, and insecurity, they begin to peel away, and then what's left is the truest version of you. And that's the version heaven responds to. Because faith isn't a performance, it's a posture. It's not about sounding spiritual, it's about being available. Now let me be clear. When you commit to something like this, 3 nights of intentional, surrendered, faith-filled prayer, don't expect it to feel magical right away. You might feel tired. You might feel like nothing is happening. You might hear the voice in your mind say, "Why are you doing this?" But that's where your breakthrough starts, when you push past what you feel and press into what you know. That something supernatural is happening whether you see it or not. Every great move starts in silence. Angels don't always enter with a trumpet. Sometimes they enter through obedience. They are drawn to consistency. They are assigned to those who don't give up the moment things feel dry. And trust me, night 1 might feel like a whisper. Night 2 might feel like resistance. But by night 3, if you've stayed faithful, something begins to break open. And when it does, you won't have to chase blessings. They will come to your door. Not because of luck, not because of chance, but because heaven responds to the sound of faith. These 3 nights are not about manipulating God. They're about positioning yourself to receive what He's been waiting to release. And the moment you step in with sincerity, something shifts. That heavy weight you've been carrying, It begins to lift. That confusion in your mind, it starts to clear. That lack in your life, it begins to make room for abundance. But it starts with showing up, with staying in the posture of surrender, night after night, believing that you are not alone, that angels are already being released on your behalf. So if you're ready to see doors open that no man can close, if you're ready to walk into rooms you didn't qualify for, if you're ready to experience provision that doesn't make sense on paper, then start tonight. Not with hype, not with theatrics, but with truth. Sit in that quiet place. Turn your attention fully to what cannot be seen. Speak if you need to. Cry if you must. But most importantly, believe, because the ones who see the supernatural are the ones who never stop expecting it. If worship is the sound that fills the atmosphere of heaven, then it's no surprise that it also draws heaven to earth. You want angels to come to your door. You want provision to find you without striving. Then create the kind of atmosphere they move in, not chaos, not doubt, but worship, pure, unfiltered heart, deep worship, not because you want something, but because you know who he is. That's the atmosphere where the supernatural becomes natural. Kathryn Kuhlman didn't beg for miracles. She didn't plead for angels. She simply made the room ready. She carried an awareness that the presence was everything, that when the presence comes, provision follows. When the presence enters, healing happens, doors open, things shift, and she knew how to usher that presence in through worship, not the kind that waits for a crowd, not the kind that needs a choir or instruments. The kind that breaks out when you're alone, when it's dark, when it doesn't make sense. That kind of worship is what summons heaven to your doorstep. And listen to me carefully. Worship is not about music. You could play the most beautiful song and still not touch heaven if your heart is disconnected. Worship is about posture. It's about surrender. It's about lifting your heart higher than your need, and when you do that, angels take notice. Why? Because worship is a language they understand. It's their native tongue. It's what they've been doing long before you were born, and when they hear it from earth, they come closer. During these 3 nights, I don't want you to just pray. I want you to worship. Even if you don't feel like it, even if nothing around you looks different, that's when it counts the most. Lift your voice, yes, but lift your attention even higher. Think about what's already been done for you. Think about the fact that even now, something is moving in the invisible. Let your gratitude rise even before the miracle arrives, because real worship doesn't wait for proof. It praises from a place of knowing. You see, worship doesn't change God. It changes you. It softens the places that life has hardened. It opens the windows of the soul, and suddenly, what felt blocked starts to flow again. What felt dead starts to breathe again. And in that space, when your spirit is open and your heart is honest, heaven makes contact. That's when angels begin to move, not because of your performance, but because your worship created the atmosphere they can work in. Some of you have been living in an atmosphere of heaviness, of complaint, of fear, and you've wondered why nothing is shifting. Let me ask you this: what have you filled your space with? Because you can't attract the supernatural while entertaining bitterness. You can't invite the presence and still host anxiety like a guest of honor. These next 3 nights are a divine opportunity to clean the air, to change the sound, to fill the atmosphere with worship so rich, so sincere, that angels have no choice but to respond. Do this right before you sleep. Find that quiet space. Don't scroll. Don't stress. Don't talk to 10 people trying to figure things out. Talk to the one who already worked it out, and let your worship be your welcome mat. You don't need the perfect voice. You just need the right heart. Whisper if you have to. Cry if you need to. Sing if you're able. but let your heart lift, because when it does, something holy begins to hover. Something sacred begins to form, and in that moment the impossible becomes possible. So for 3 nights, don't just wait on a miracle. Worship like the miracle is already in the room, because that's when angels show up, with provision, with answers, with doors you didn't even knock on. If there's one thing that can block the flow of the supernatural faster than anything else, it's the clutter we carry inside. We want breakthrough, we want provision, we want divine answers, but we're holding on to things that heaven cannot work with. Bitterness, hidden pride, silent resentment, quiet rebellion, and we wonder why things feel stuck. That's why these 3 nights are more than just moments of prayer and worship. They are moments of seek-clearing, moments of surrender, moments of letting go. Kathryn Kuhlman often said that before the power of God could move freely in a room, there had to be absolute surrender, and she meant every word of it, because heaven doesn't force itself where it's not welcome. And the truth is, we can say all the right things with our mouths, but if our hearts are carrying offense, jealousy, unforgiveness, or unrepentant sin, we create spiritual interference. It's like asking for a miracle while building walls that keep it out. Repentance isn't about shame, it's about realignment. It's about getting back in sync with the flow of heaven. You see, these angels that carry provision, they're not just responding to need, they're responding to order. They're responding to hearts that are in position, and nothing positions your spirit like repentance does. Not the kind that's forced, not the kind that's guilt-driven, but the kind that comes from honesty. The kind that says, I don't want anything to stand between me and what heaven wants to release into my life. That kind of openness clears the path for supernatural movement. There's something powerful that happens when you take just a few quiet moments and examine yourself honestly. No performance, no pretending, just you saying, if there's anything in me that's off, anything I've been ignoring, show me. That's not weakness, that's wisdom, because you can't heal what you won't confront. And heaven is not looking for perfection. It's looking for purity, a pure heart, a willing spirit. That's where divine provision lands. Some people go through life recycling the same battles, the same delays, the same cycles, not because God hasn't released the answer, but because they haven't cleared the space to receive it. These 3 nights are your invitation to do exactly that. Clear the space, let go of what's clogging your spirit. You've carried guilt long enough. You've carried anger long enough. You've tolerated thoughts that don't belong to you long enough. Now is the time to let it go. Repentance is a gift, not a punishment. It's the doorway back into alignment, and when your heart is aligned, angels don't hesitate. They come with speed. They come with clarity. They come with answers you didn't even know you needed. Because provision isn't just about money or opportunities. It's also about peace. It's also about clarity. It's also about finally sleeping at night without that weight on your chest. And all of that becomes accessible when you choose to say, I'm done carrying what I was never meant to hold. So for these 3 nights, don't just ask, don't just worship. Take time to surrender, search your heart, lay it bare. You don't have to make a show of it. You just have to be real. You'd be surprised how quickly the supernatural responds to a soul that's clean and a spirit that's surrendered. Things begin to unlock, delays begin to dissolve, resistance begins to bow, and the very things you've been hoping for start to find their way to you, not because you earned it, but because you made room. And once the space is cleared, you'll find yourself walking lighter, thinking clearer, hearing more accurately. That's what happens when repentance goes deep. It doesn't leave you condemned, it leaves you free. And in that freedom, angels move, provision flows, doors open, peace returns,